WWE and UFC bringing their pay-per-views together for one big package. We're going to talk about it right here, right now on TAS. All right, y'all, you already know what it is. It is the Ango Show. I, of course, am Ango. We're going to kick things off with some very interesting news. CM Punk, but this time we're talking about it from the WWE perspective. Nick Khan doing the media rounds after the big news surrounding WWE and UFC officially merging under TKO Group. While speaking with ESPN's Mark Raimondi about the WWE UFC merger, WWE President Nick Khan was asked about WWE's overall interest in CM Punk. And man, this is a very interesting response because Nick Khan didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He really didn't say much, but it sounds like maybe they're not interested. Listen, we only have respect for Phil. We appreciate his run here. We appreciate what he did and tried to do with the UFC. Not many people could actually get in there and do what he did. So when we have respect for Phil, we wish him nothing but the best. Now, obviously, this is very interesting considering the fact that CM Punk was terminated by AEW. Obviously, Nick Khan is not going to acknowledge that. And Nick Khan is not going to openly address any sort of interest within CM Punk coming to the WWE, but you have to wonder if the synergies are there, and this is likely due to the fact that CM Punk obviously had history as a WWE performer, but he is also somebody that made his way into the UFC octagon. And despite not being successful in the UFC, you guys got to remember, he went in there over 30 years of age. He didn't train for the UFC his entire life like most UFC athletes do. But the synergies are there. He has the history within WWE and UFC. Of course, people are going to argue that maybe CM Punk is too much of a headache for the backstage stuff. But of course, WWE is a business now more than ever. Endeavor owning WWE and merging UFC and WWE together, I think it is very possible that it could happen. I don't think Nick Khan is going to outright confirm it. There's a lot of headlines these days about CM Punk. I think they want to steer very clear about publicly talking about CM Punk. But this is a way of WWE kind of having an official statement. Obviously, Nick Khan showing respect for CM Punk. It's a whole different way of handling it. But we'll see what happens, right? If CM Punk comes to the WWE, I am not necessarily shocked by the news if it were to happen. I think it's very well possible, but only time will tell. Guys, Mandy Rose got everybody talking on social media today because on her Instagram story, she was asked if she'll ever wrestle again. And of course, we have talked about Mandy Rose, and there's been rumors that AEW could potentially be interested in the in terms of bringing in Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose's response was quite simple to the question. She says, "Funny you asked. Your girl may or may not be a free agent very soon. Eye emoji, eye emoji, eye emoji." Now, this is interesting because Mandy Rose was released by the WWE. We haven't seen her on WWE. We haven't seen her in the world of professional wrestling. And a lot of people were wondering what exactly is going on with Mandy Rose and why hasn't she appeared anywhere. Keep in mind, Mandy Rose, at the tail end of her NXT run, she completely transformed herself as an in-ring performer. She always had the character stuff down. But as an in-ring athlete, we just saw tremendous improvement. A lot of people became good fans, big fans of Mandy Rose. Look, I'm going to just shoot straight here. I know we were talking about this the other day about releases with a cause. I think it is fair to say that perhaps WWE did in fact have a non-compete clause that was longer than 90 days. I think that is very, very possible. And it wouldn't shock me if that was the case. It would not shock me if WWE, due to the circumstances surrounding Mandy Rose and her release, it wouldn't shock me if there was a non-compete that was much longer than the 90 days. The reality is Mandy Rose should come back to professional wrestling, and the reality is Mandy Rose should be back in the WWE. The reality is WWE should have never let Mandy Rose go. I understand they're a business. I understand the way that they think. But deep down inside, especially with Endeavor now taking the reign, there are a lot of people in the UFC who say or do a lot worse than what Mandy Rose was doing. And the reality is I can see WWE bringing her back. Now, with that being said, I just have to throw this out there. Impact Wrestling, absolutely dominant with their women's division. The knockouts in Impact are incredible. AEW could utilize some help in that division. If you want to bring in Mandy Rose, I think she is a great fit for any one of these companies. Definitely stay tuned to this channel, because once we get confirmation on where she goes, I'll keep you guys updated. I personally don't see Mandy Rose doing the the indies or whatever. I don't see that being the case. I think she's ready for TV. I think she is ready for big time storylines. And obviously, I'll keep you guys updated. This should be a very interesting one. And that brings us to our final topic of today's video. Man, we're learning so much about TKO Group. Endeavor really taking the reins. There's a couple things I want to talk about here. First and foremost, it has become pretty evident, according to, Nick Khan, Lawrence Epstein, who is the UFC COO. It looks like there is a lot of possibilities with both of these companies coming together. One of them being that their media calls are expected to be separated. So obviously, when discussing WWE finances, that is expected to be a separate call from the UFC. Fair enough. But where do they combine and bring their superpowers together? Well, there is this belief that UFC and WWE could be doing a package for their media rights deal. It may not be likely, but it could be a possibility. Epstein did say that they could potentially end up on the same platform. Anything is possible. But right now, we've got a lot of diversity across major media companies here in the U.S., and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay, fair enough. Obviously, there's a lot of value between UFC and WWE. Imagine you're doing TV rights negotiations. You get them all on the same platform. It could be very beneficial. But what we have next is something that intrigues me very much. While speaking with Mark Raimondi of ESPN, Nick Khan and Lawrence Epstein talked about the merger, and more specifically, they talked about the possibility of doing a package deal where WWE and UFC run shows in the same city or on the same weekend. Very interesting. We could see UFC and WWE events held in the same city on the same weekend. TKO could bring the two promotions to tourism authorities as a package deal and get paid to bring both to a jurisdiction. Site fees have already become a revenue stream for UFC and WWE. So basically, the idea is that, for example, hypothetical, let's say New York City wants WWE events at Madison Square Garden. They could put in the bid for WWE and UFC as a package where now they are sharing their pay-per-view weekend together. I like this idea. I think there's a lot of synergies between both companies. Clearly, WWE wants to grow its audience from UFC, and clearly UFC wants to grow its audience from WWE. I imagine the idea or the possibility of having UFC on Saturday night at Madison Square Garden or somewhere around New York City, with WWE coming into pay-per-view on Sunday. I think that could be a great idea. We're using New York City as an example. Another hypothetical, Australia, they want WWE for a pay-per-view, UFC for a pay-per-view. They could spread it out throughout the weekend across multiple venues, whatever it may be. I think it makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I think within late 2024, I could see WWE charging for the big four pay-per-views. I think everything else could be on, network TV or streaming platforms, whatever. We're going to see a lot of changes here. But if WWE ever wants to charge for pay-per-views again, the reality is they could also package them with UFC, which would be somewhat beneficial. It's going to be interesting. A lot of things are happening here. I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm optimistic. I'm also pessimistic. Like, I genuinely don't know what to expect here, but it looks like they have a sound strategy to grow both brands. Packaging pay-per-views, sharing pay-per-view weekends could be really good. I don't want to see WWE and UFC compete because that's something that we've done quite a bit. And obviously now it wouldn't make sense for them to do that now that they're all one company. But I could very well see a scenario where WWE moves their pay-per-views to Sundays, and that would be very, very awesome. I prefer Sunday pay-per-views. That's what I would like to see as well. We're going to talk more about this in detail as more information comes out. Stay tuned.